What's up, YouTube? It has been a long time since I've done another video, and I apologize, and I appreciate everyone's patience, everyone who is still subscribed. I appreciate everyone. Been rough with school and then getting back from some training I had to do for the Air Force and all that good stuff, but back in action, ready to do another video, and I want to try to get more consistent doing these, so I appreciate everyone's patience and for working with me. I have some comments I need to do on other videos, so I ask everybody to be patient on that too. I'm gonna get to them. Appreciate y'all sticking with me. But for this video, we're gonna talk about something that has plagued, I guess, the Black community, and it is something that people use to try to, again, slam the Bible, taking things out of context, using proof text, misconceptions, mistranslating. And these are the reasons why I do these videos, to mitigate some of that. What we're talking about today is the sin of Ham and the quote unquote curse of Ham. We're going to dive into that and really chop this up and really see that it does not justify the use of slavery that was done here in America, the slave plantation owners, whatever you want to call them, using this passage to try to justify what they did. It is unbiblical, has always been, and will always be unbiblical. So let's dive into that. Text I'm in right now, Genesis 9, and we're starting at about 18, going down to the end of the chapter. So let me give you this to start us off. The biblical author, which I believe was Moses, wants us to see something from the jump. So let's look at that first verse. Genesis 9 and 18. It says, now the sons of Noah who came out of the ark were Shem and Ham and Japheth. And oh, by the way, Ham was the father of Canaan. Now we'll see that a couple more times through this passage. The author wants you to see that Ham is the father of Canaan. He wants to make that abundantly clear. And if you go and you look at Israel's history, who was one of the people groups that they struggled with the most? The Canaanites. So the author wants to draw that out. Ham was the father of Canaan. He was the father of Canaan. It says that multiple times. So let's see what happened in this story. I'll just give you an overview. After the flood, they all get off the boat and Noah plants a vineyard. So we can see that it was a span of time that's not really brought out in scripture, but it's implied. The author thinks that we're smart enough to get that it was a span of time that passed and Noah had enough time to plant a vineyard. Probably would take no less than 3 years. And it's probably a longer time period than that, because we see, as if we look in chapter 10, around verse 6, we see that Ham had 4 kids. So it was a span of time here that's not really explicitly said, but we can tell that it was a few years at least. So what happened? Noah plants his vineyard, gets a little too excited with the wine, and he gets drunk, and he uncovers himself in his own tent. Now, what happened next is where we get all of this big blow up. So Ham was the first one to go and see his father in his nakedness. Now, in our culture, in the Western culture, and pretty much everyone who watches this video is from the West. I don't want to assume, but for the most part, everyone is from the West who watches these videos. In our culture, the over-sexualization that we are exposed to really lessens how anything that's really taboo. So pretty much nothing is taboo in our culture anymore. You do whatever you want, which it should not be, but that's a video for another day. So when we look at Ham seeing his father naked, it doesn't give us the same appalling feeling that it would for someone in the Middle East. Now, in Middle Eastern culture, a culture that is much more similar to the Old Testament, nakedness is extremely shameful. It is something that is incredibly taboo. Your nakedness should only be seen by your husband or wife. It is an incredibly big deal. For example, I have friends in the military that have deployed, and they talk about how it is over there in the Middle East with stuff like this. So in the bathroom stalls, so like in America, it's just a big old open room. In our men's locker rooms, I don't know what it's like in the women's locker room, but in the men's locker room, it's just a big open area where we shower together. Everybody naked up in there together. And that's why when I go in the locker room, my head is down, and I'm using my peripheral to get where I'm going. In the Middle East, however, if you go to a gym or you go somewhere like that, they have stalls where curtains drawn, like when you shower, you don't see anybody else. You don't look at anyone else. In that type of culture, nakedness is taboo. So for Ham to see his father in that time, back in that day, to see his nakedness like that is we cannot conjure up the feelings of that much shame for Ham to see his father like that. But what does Ham do? And this shows the heart and intentions of Ham. Instead of covering his father up, what does he do? He goes and tells his brothers. And then we get to the curse and all that. But let me take a step back and look at this. There are other explanations. It's funny because I just did a big paper on this for seminary for this particular issue. What did Ham do? And like I just brought up, in the Middle East, nakedness is something that's extremely taboo. So it makes sense why the curse came. But other explanations, like for example, of popular rabbinic tradition was that Ham castrated Noah. Yeah, that is one of the explanations, and a couple others are Ham. They try to use different Hebrew. It's really gymnastics when you speak of hermeneutics. What they try to do to say that Ham either had sex with his mother or he had sex with his own father, Noah. Just by looking at the plain reading of the text, does not justify that, does not show that. And if any of those other options would have happened, Shem and Japheth's response would have been completely different. But all they did was they backed in, they put probably a big cloak or towel or something, and they, instead of looking into the tent, they backed in and placed it over their father, so they wouldn't have to look at his nakedness because of that shame. Now, when I read this is kind of what I see. Is it Ham? He comes in, he looks, he goes tells his brothers, "Hey, Shem, Japheth, man, look at Dad looking like a fool in the tent naked. Come on, man, look at this mess." Instead of what he should have done is cover his father, instead of going and telling his brothers. That is where the sin comes in. But here's the interesting part. We always talk about the curse of Ham, the sin of Ham, and then the curse of Ham. Well, let me look at the scripture. When Noah awoke from his wine, he knew what his youngest son, Ham, had done to him. So he said, "Cursed be Canaan, a servant of servants. He shall be to his brothers." And verse 26 at the bottom, "And let Canaan be his servant," talking about serving Shem. And in the verse 27, "And let Canaan be his servant." Now, if I'm reading the text right, I don't see anything where the Bible cursed Ham. I can try to shake it out of here, but I don't see anything where it said that Ham was cursed. But I see Canaan cursed. Now, a couple of reasons why that could be, and I'll give you what I think is the best one, is that Noah must have seen that Canaan had the same bad attitude, the same bad morality that his father Ham did. So Noah cursed Canaan. Now, why is that significant? Say Noah did curse Ham. What would that have meant? All of his children would have been cursed. Why is that significant? This is where we get to the part where the slave owners would try to use it to justify their slavery of Africans, because Ham in Hebrew means dark skin. It means the skin tone, the color. And because of that, they would say, "Oh, look at the scripture. Black people are supposed to be slaves to Shem and Japheth, who were pretty much conceived to be, I guess, Middle Eastern or white." We don't know what the skin color of these guys was, and to me, it doesn't really even matter. The point that the author is trying to show you is that Canaan, the father of the Canaanites, was cursed, and they were a big thorn in the side of Israel for centuries. That's what the author wants you to see. So, but still, the significance is that Ham was not cursed. We see in Genesis chapter 10, verse 6, that Ham had 4 sons, Cush, Mizraim, Put, and Canaan. If Ham would have been cursed, all 4 of his children would have been cursed. But that is not the case. Canaan, one of Ham's sons, was cursed. And that is all. So really, there is no curse of Ham. It is the curse of Canaan. Those who tried to use this scripture to justify slavery were dead wrong. They were evil, using passages like this, misinterpreting them to try to justify the evil they were doing. There is no curse of Ham. There is only a curse of Canaan. Even if you did try to justify it still through that, how would you even know who were the descendants of the Canaanites? And that wasn't written to the white. It wasn't written to white people who tried to use it to justify their use of slavery. This was written to Israelites. Sorry, I get so frustrated with this, but no, I'm not sorry, because this is just blatant misinterpretation. It has led so many people astray. So I thank you all who watch this video. Try to keep these things shorter, but I appreciate whoever watched this video and share it to other people who have this misconception too. That because some curse of Ham, even though he wasn't even cursed, shows that the scripture was it's all misconceptions. That's all it is. And through proper hermeneutics, trying to understand the Bible properly, we can see that it wasn't Ham who was cursed. It was one of his sons, because Noah saw the very evil seed that was in Ham was in Canaan, not the other sons. So here we are. Here it is. Like, subscribe, and share. Thank you guys so much for your patience, and I will continue to try to make these videos at a more rapid pace. Thank you guys.